Chucky could potentially be the next chapter coming into the fog, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at some awesome fan-made concepts by you guys of what Chucky could potentially look like. Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day or night. Tomorrow, the PTV is upon us, and I have a very strong feeling that it is going to be Chucky. Based on our last video, I am super confident that he is going to be joining the fog. And I want to take a look at some powers, perks, and concepts, break them down for you guys so we could potentially see what Chucky is going to look like in DBD. I'm not going to lie, this one really came out of left field, and if it truly is Chucky, I am so curious to know how the power and the perks are going to work, considering how small Chucky really is. So hopefully, this could give us some insight. Shoutouts to all of the creators, and let's go ahead and take a look at these concepts. All right, so here we have the first concept. Let's take a look at everything. First, we have the Heart of Damballa. I hope I didn't incorrectly mispronounce that. All right, here we go. A primordial being casts inconspicuous voodoo power upon you, allowing you to transfer your soul into survivors. The doll will transfer his soul into a survivor, effectively taking over their mind and spirit for 45 seconds. During this duration, the survivor will be afflicted with possession. Allows no interaction between the survivor and others, includes body blocking, and the doll can freely control the survivor for the entire duration. After the 60 seconds has expired, the doll will return to its previous position before possession. Possessed survivors can still perform actions that slow the trial down to benefit the doll. The doll can freely do generators, which will result in slower progression and increased frequency of skill checks. The doll can rebuild sabotage hooks through a moderately slower progression. The doll can drop survivors' items with a rarity of uncommon or lower. Survivors under the effect of the power may only spectate during its effect. However, they will be granted a small buff to repair and altruism speed after its effect subsides. The doll can only possess survivors within an 8-meter range. Injured survivors take a shorter duration to possess, but move slower while under the effect of possession. The doll cannot cancel the power at any point of its duration. Okay. So this is quite an interesting one. It is pretty canon. It makes sense being able to possess other survivors. I definitely can see a concept like this coming into the game. It makes a lot of sense having, Chucky basically possessing the survivors. I think this one is a little bit older. This is an older concept, so there needs to be a little bit more with the power to make sure it does well. Overall, though, the concept of possessing other survivors, I think is pretty good. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the teachable perks. First, we have Hex Eternal Terror. So, you refuse to let anyone go. Every time you are stunned by a pallet, a random dull totem on the map ignites. The first time a survivor is hooked while the dull totem is active, you gain a token. At 2 tokens, survivors will randomly have their aura revealed to the killer for 2 to 3 seconds, and this can occur every 15 seconds. At 3 tokens, survivors have all aura reading abilities taken away every 9 seconds for 6 seconds. And at 4 tokens, once the exit gates are powered, all survivors' auras are revealed until the hex is cleansed. The killer also gains a 8% movement speed increase. Wow. So that one is a pretty strong hex perk. Hex perks are supposed to be pretty good, and this one is pretty damn good overall. So I like it. I think it's pretty solid, and I think it could definitely work in the game. The next perk is Cobbled Bard. Your expertly devised malicious traps dwindle the survivor's hopes. For every hooked survivor, the unhooking speed is reduced by 18%. Rescuer's altruistic and repair speed are also decreased by 5% for 60 seconds. This can occur once every 80 seconds. So wow, this just pretty much, if you put it on, the unhooking speed is reduced by 18% and the repair speed is decreased by 5% for 1 minute. So, I mean, that's just a really strong perk overall. Definitely would need some tweaks, but all right, I can dig it. The final one is Still Approach. Your nearly weightless body allows you to traverse in dead silence. After hooking a survivor, your terror radius is decreased by 24 meters for 10 seconds. This effect can only occur once every 60 seconds. So you already kind of have some perks like this in the game, but overall having a smaller terror radius after a hook is quite nice. Again, we have perks like that in the game already, but nonetheless, this one's pretty cool. Overall, this is a nice concept. I think the possession power makes a lot of sense. Again, make sure you guys check out all the creators down below, and a big shout out because this is a nice concept. Here is the second concept that we have for you guys. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Seems like we might follow the same theme, as the special ability is possession. The toy cannot do it all on its own. At all times, the toy may have up to 3 other dolls roaming the trial that can be possessed. Possessing toys will cause a cooldown and can only be activated during Stick'em. Toys that are inactive will move on their own will. The special attack is Stick'em. Press and hold the attack button to activate Stick'em. Once charged, the toy will enter a sprint. While sprinting, the toy can perform maim and possession. When maiming a survivor, the toy may stab them as many times as possible. Each stab inflicts more damage. After a maim is performed, it will enter a short cooldown. A survivor can resist the toy's maim by pressing the action button. 1 stab inflicts hindered, 2 stabs deep wounds, 3 exhausted, and 4 the broken status effect. The fury stab will down a survivor. Hooks are replaced with good guy boxes, which the toys will drag and stuff the survivor into. The movement speed is 4.4, the height is very short, and the terror radius is 15 meters. Okay, so similar concept with the possession again, except this is going to be for toys that are roaming around. I think some extra stipulations that we could make is if the toys actually, you know, it would be really cool if they had terror radius and maybe the survivors get tricked into thinking that they're actually the killer. That would be pretty cool. The possession part is really nice, so I like that. The next part is maiming the survivor, which is kind of like the Legion, except you could stab multiple times. I think this needs to be a little bit more clear and concise, but I like the idea. The multiple times you stab him, the better things that happen. So I guess how many stabs you can get before the survivor essentially presses the action buttons, kind of like the Skull Merchant where you have to press left, right, up, down, whatever the case may be. So if you manage to stab him as quick as possible and the survivor's in a panic, it's like a fight on both sides. So good survivors will be able to counteract you quite easily, while survivors that aren't so good or don't have that much fast reaction time will end up down and getting themselves down. So I like the idea. Let's go ahead and take a look at the perks. The first perk, or perk 1, is hooking a survivor will not reveal its aura to other survivors. Each survivor's hooked will increase sounds made by injured survivors by 8%. So this is a mix of almost Franklin's Demise, or is it Franklin's Demise? I believe it's Franklin's Demise that does it now. Or Knockout, sorry, I think it's Knockout, but for the hook, and also Strider, making everybody a little bit louder. So not too bad overall. I like this idea. Perk number 2, you become obsessed with one survivor. Each time you injure your obsession, you gain some tokens. Each token is stackable, and your terror radius decreases. So, all right, I can dig it. Again, another perk that decreases your terror radius. We've seen something like that in the previous concept. It seems a lot of people are following the theme of having stealth and things like that, or possession, to their advantage. Finally, perk number 3, after kicking a generator, you're immediately notified when a survivor enters the area in a 6-meter range. The survivor will suffer from the oblivious status effect during this time. So basically, you kick a generator, someone goes back to the gen, you automatically know they're there, and they're also oblivious, so they know they've been affected by this. Not a bad concept overall. This one's pretty good too. I like this one a little bit more than the previous one. It has a little bit more to it of maiming the survivors and possession. The perks can use some work, but overall, a nice concept and a job well done. All right, here we have a chapter that was just done 17 days ago by Name Not Found. There's some interesting general killer stats that I didn't actually incorporate on this. They typed it out, so I tried to put it into a little form as best as I can. They said Chucky moves at 5.5. Instead of picking up survivor, he drags them by the leg and hooks them by hoisting them over his shoulder and then onto a hook. He is about as tall as a crouching ghost face. Let's take a look at the power, the Curse of Chucky. There are piles of Chucky boxes all over the map. When Chucky dies, he will respawn at the pile he marks. The animation for respawning is typically just shaking boxes and ruffling sound, and then he bursts out. Chucky is extremely fast, but his hits are only worth half. It works similar to the Trickster, except for instead of disappearing naturally, you have to heal it, and it takes half as long. Chucky has to hit survivors twice to do a single health stage. Chucky can also crawl under pallets about the same speed as a regular killer window vault. Chucky's hit cooldown and miss cooldown are twice as long as usual and takes 3 times as long when Chucky does an entire health state of damage. When Chucky is in his cooldown, survivors can break him. This will kill Chucky and force him to respawn at either a highlighted or random Chucky box pile. When Chucky respawns, he can see the aura of the most recent dead Chucky doll. Holding the interact button for 2.5 seconds, Chucky will get up and give you killer instinct on a survivor that broke them until you get within 24 meters of that survivor's, then it will fade away. So this one is a interesting concept as well. So similar to the other ones, but this time we have a bunch of boxes that are scattered around the maps. You also move extremely fast at 5.5, but you do a lot less damage. So in order to down a survivor, you need to hit them 4 times in total. I like this idea because it's very unique. Considering that you also are smaller, it makes sense that you wouldn't be doing as much damage. And the chance that the survivors actually have a nice viable counterplay is pretty cool. Let's take a look at some of these perk concepts. The first one is upon hitting a survivor, you gain 5% haste effect for 5 seconds after the hit cooldown. So that one's kind of nice. This is kind of like the Bloodlust perk that we have in the game, actually. Very similar to that. When you hit someone, you get some haste, but it gets rid of Bloodlust altogether. The second perk on the list is after standing still for 3 seconds, you can see the aura of all survivors within 24 meters of you. This one's kind of nice. I actually like this one. More aura reading ability, and the prerequisite this time is just to stand still for a set amount of time. So honestly, it's not that bad. It's an easy way to constantly get information. I think this will need to have a cooldown on it in order to be a little bit more viable, because every other aura reading perk that we have, such as kicking generators or opening lockers, have a cooldown. So having a cooldown on this would be quite nice. And finally, the third perk, a Hex, which affects unhooking for all survivors. When hooking a new survivor, you gain a token up to a maximum of 4 tokens in total. For every token, unhooking survivors takes 100% longer. All effects of the Hex perk pre-exist until the totem is cleansed or blessed. So unhooking being an action that takes a little bit longer is quite nice. Overall, this is a solid chapter, and a big shout out to Name Not Found, because this is one of the best ones that I've read so far. I really like the uniqueness to it. Well, there you go. Those were 3 unique Chucky concepts of what potentially we could see coming into the fog. I don't know fully if Chucky is going to be coming into the game tomorrow, but I have a really strong feeling. I mean, to me, it is super black and white. But hey, we will see. I'm putting all my chips on Chucky. We'll have to wait and see exactly what happens, but 11 a.m. tomorrow, we will figure out what's happening. And this kind of gives us some good insight on what potentially we could see from a lot of these concepts. We've seen maybe teleporting around through boxes, and I think that would be really cool too, alongside with something like possession. We'll have to wait and see what DBD has up their sleeves, but I'm super excited. I want to give hope for everybody else that thinks it's not Chucky, but evidence really points to that. Nonetheless, that is pretty much going to do it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. Again, take a look at all of the fantastic creators of all of these concepts down below. All credit goes to them. And as always, I'm the king. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.